you've got any differential receivers. Go fish. Hi, welcome to Can I Spader Christmas. I just love this time of year. It's when I get to play with my lights for real. So I'm pretty excited about that. If any of you are stressing out, you're not prepared, maybe this is your first year, don't worry about it. Unless you have called a television crew to your house at a specific date, nobody's going to care. I've still got stuff to put up, which I plan to do this coming week, but I also have some repairs to do, and then I have a couple of props, namely the wall washer and what was the other one? Oh, the chroma poles that I'm kind of changing out, so I don't even know if I'm going to have a prop for them yet. Am I stressing about it? No, I'm not. You shouldn't stress about it either. But tonight I want to talk about these. These are, can you see that? These are the new smart receivers, smart differential receivers from Falcon. So let me let you see. This is the older one, the normal or the classic or whatever you want to call it. These are the smart ones, and basically the big difference is you can daisy chain the smart ones. So you can put up to 3 of them together, which basically would give you 12 ports on the end of a Ethernet cable. So if you've got, you can use, like if you've got an F16, it has one output. I'm trying to tape here. Basically, you could hook 3 of them together. So you'd come out from the controller into one of these ports, from one of these ports to one of these ports, one of these ports to one of these ports, and that's it. You can't go 4, but it'll give you 12 pixel ports at the end of an Ethernet cable. So if you're used to using these classic versions, you can hook up an Ethernet cable to your controller and then have this sitting out 250 feet away, I think is the standard Ethernet distance. But so with these, that is in total. So that's from controller to the end of the chain can be the total of 250 feet. The total distance that you can go for the Ethernet cables. So if you have 50 feet in between these two, that counts as part of the total cable length. So just keep that in mind. So on these boards, this can function as either a smart receiver or one of the classic receivers. So if you have some of these in your display and you want to put one of these in its place, you can do that. You can set this up to act like just one of these. But this one has several switches on it. I believe some that came out before this had some jumpers, but now everything is switches. So there's 3 sets of 2 switches, total of 6 switches, and I'll go through those in just a minute. There's also a little momentary switch to go into test mode. I'll talk about that too. In order to run these with your system, you need to have a controller that has firmware 2.50 or greater. I still had the stock firmware, so I needed to do the upgrade. You get the benefit from that because I can show you how to do the upgrade. One of the other pieces of information in the manual says that the voltage cannot go lower than 5.3 volts. I haven't tested it with any lower, so I don't know what it does. I'm guessing it doesn't work properly. So 5.3 volts is the lowest that you can go with this. It's not going to hurt your pixels. So make sure you keep that in mind if you start using these with 5-volt pixels. One other thing, if you are daisy chaining receivers, you cannot put one of the older receivers in the line. Doesn't work. You can use an older receiver, and you can use a smart receiver as an old receiver, or you can daisy chain 3 smart receivers together. You cannot insert one of these old receivers in the chain. If you do, okay, maybe not that violent, but just don't do it. You can't just hang it on to the end of the chain or anything. Won't work, don't do it. The sum of the pixels that you have operating in this daisy chain mode cannot be more than you would have in a normal receiver. So this really more applies to an F48, or you will have seen this, maybe you have a differential expansion card for an F16. There is a little slider that you can proportion the number of pixels based on which ports you're talking to. So let's just say you set it for 100 for the boards that are for these, or one of these. You know, say I could do 100 pixels on each port here. Well, you can't do 150 with port 1 here plus port 1 here plus port 1 here. It doesn't work that way. It's only 100 pixels. So you're basically just taking what you would normally do with one of these and splitting it amongst these 3 boards here. The advantage is you get more pixel ports, so you do less power injection. Okay, supported pixel types. And I'm going to read this to you. It's the same on both boards. So if the classic ones or the smart receivers, same thing. So the WS2811, WS2812, the TM1803, 1804, 1809, 1812, and the LX1203 pixels. So same support for both boards. As I said earlier, the voltage needs to be no lower than 5.3 volts. So it'll go from 5.3 volts up to 13 volts. But if you have 2 different boards, you can run 2 different voltage pixels. So you could run 5-volt pixels on this board and 12-volt pixels on this board. You could daisy chain them together. This is just data, it's not power. Power is, you know, right here. So you could run 2 different kinds of pixels, 2 different voltages of pixels if you needed to. Apparently, I also need to issue a warning about these little power connectors here. They do have a little back on them, so just make sure you push the wire all the way in. Loosen them up first. You can see there's a little gate in there and it goes up and down. Loosen it up, put the wire in there, and then tighten it back down. Make sure they're tight, make sure they go all the way in as far as they can go. Additionally, do not use wires that have tinned or soldered ends, as this can prevent the connector from fully clamping onto the wire. Loose connections might lead to overheating and can melt the connector and cause a fire. In other words, another warning, don't plug these into your standard wall outlet, and don't just cut off an extension cord and plug it in here. That's not how you power these. You need a DC power supply. 5 volts to 13 volts, 110 volts or 220 volts, and you're gonna get okay, these have 2 RJ45 jacks. They take standard computer Ethernet cables. You only use one of the jacks to bring data in. So if you're not daisy chaining off of this, you only need to use one of these. You can use either one, doesn't matter. They're just really, you know, providing connection between the 2. So if you're coming in from one and you have that connected to another one, you can come into that one or you can come into that one. It doesn't matter. Most of you are pretty OCD, just like me, so you will say the input is on the top and the output is on the bottom. whatever you want to do is fine. Both of them work. We recommend that you use Cat 5, 5E, or 6 cable. So you would connect one end of the cable to the differential smart receiver, and the other one would go to this differential output port on the F16. Do not plug it into the Ethernet port into here. If you do, if you have a differential expansion card on the F16, you can use one of these 4 ports, and then it goes to the differential receiver. Any of these work to go to any of these. On the F16, these 2 are not differential output ports. These are DMX ports that are different, so they won't work for this. Only this top one will work with the differential receivers. You use this little mode switch, and I'll show you this closer in just a minute, but you use this little mode switch to say whether it's the receiver A, B, or C. When you put these in a chain, if you could set this one to A, you could set this one to B, and you could set this one to C, or you could move them around. It really doesn't matter. Once you have A, B, and C set, it doesn't matter which order the cable actually comes in. They'll figure it out because they are each set to A, B, and C. You have to do that, of course. If you look on the back of the receiver, there is a little guide which tells you how to set the mode switch. So both down is in normal mode, or it's acting like one of the classic receivers. The left switch up, it's smart A. The right switch up is smart B, and both of them up is smart C. Right now, both switches are down, so this is a normal differential receiver. If I want to make it A, that switch goes up. So now this is an A differential receiver. That is a B differential receiver, so just the left one is up. And then if both of them are up, that is a C differential receiver. As I said before, there are 3 sets of these dip switches here. So these 2 switches are what they call terminator switches. Not that kind of terminator. It's kind of like DMX if you've used a bunch of DMX. If not, don't worry about it. All it means is the last receiver board, the last smart receiver in the chain, needs to have the terminator switches on. So there's 4 terminator switches, 2 sets of 2. They're either both off or they're both on. Both off or both on. I am not a crook. If your pixels are flickering, you probably forgot to set the terminator switch. There are, you're going to be able to see it on this, but there's 4 little LEDs right here. I'll show you a close-up of that. So normally all 4 LEDs would be on. That indicates that each of these 4 ports is receiving data. If you have not all lights on, it's probably a problem. Could be a cable, could be something else, but you want to see all 4 lights. All right, enough of this manual reading stuff. Let's get to some of the good stuff. So the first thing I need to do is update the firmware on my controller. I believe 2.55 is the latest. So I will go out, grab the firmware, put it on an SD card, and we'll take you through the steps. So go out to the pixelcontroller.com webpage and click on support page. That will take you to the support page, and then the second thing here is current firmware, so click on that and it will try to download the current firmware for you. Before you start anything, make sure your controller is powered on. go out to the main page of your controller and click on Save Settings. This will save your settings because the first thing we're going to do is a factory reset, and it's going to erase everything. So save these off to a file so that we can later load them back in. Once you've done that, power down the controller. And then now hold the select button down. It's the one next to the right button. And then power the controller back up. You will see some kind of message that a reset is occurring. Once you see the logo, you can let go of the button. Now place the bootloader updater v1.00.fal. It's part of the download of the firmware. Put that on a micro SD card, 32 gig or smaller, formatted FAT32. Put that micro SD card into the controller and apply power. The application will be loaded, and then the screen will give you a prompt telling you it's time to remove the SD card, power down, then up. So take the SD card out, power it down, power it back up, and then the application will replace the bootloader. Go back to your computer and remove the bootloader file, and then put the F12 file onto the SD card. Once you've done that, put that card into the controller and apply power. This time the firmware will install. You can remove the card when it's finished, power down, back up, and the controller should boot up, and then you can restore your settings if you saved them off in step 1.
Looking at the web pages, so this is version 2.55 of the firmware. It's the latest one that is blessed and out on the website. So that's the one I've got. A couple of notable changes up here. We have different options. This is the status page, which is pretty much the same, although with this 255 update, we do have some FPP settings here that it could be like a master remote. I have not played around with any of this, so I don't know. This is ZCPP if you're using that to automatically configure the controller, but most of you will just be using it as an E131 ArtNet mode, and that's the default. The test side has added some, you can select different pieces that you want to test, but it's very similar to the old menu that was on the front page where you could do ramps of the different colors, a color wash. We have a white option. And that's about it. Inputs, you can select inputs of the analog sensors if you have any. Network configuration, let's take a look at that. Yeah, network configuration is the same. The E130 ArtNet, so this one is the exact same setup. You can program this with XLights. The output settings, now we have both the ports and the output. So the ports is the standard string ports page. I'll come back to this. The serial outputs page, those used to be on two different menus, but now they are the same. On miscellaneous settings, you can now set the time of your controller, and the fan control is still here, and then of course the help menu takes you to the manual for the F16. So we'll go back. Alright, so the main difference here is now we have these little blue plus circles, and so what this allows us to do is add the smart receiver. So if you click that, you get a section now. So this is 1A, 2A, 3A, and 4A. So this is the first smart receiver in the chain. And so if you have a second one in the chain, you click it again, you get 1B, 2B, 3B, 4B. If you click it again, you get 1C, 2C, 3C, and 4C, and now you see you don't have another plus. You can only string 3 of them together. But that's how you get at the individual ports, and you proportion the strings accordingly that way. And if you go, oh well, I only got 2 there, you can reduce it back to standard. So this would be if you just have a classic digital differential receiver, you would use it in this way. If you have one smart receiver that you want to use, you could do it this way. 2 and 3. Now I'm not going to actually configure this in this page because I do want to show you how to do this in XLights. Alright, in XLights I have a single line of 15 pixels. I have another single line of 27 pixels, and I need one more of 30 pixels. Oh, get level, get level. Okay, we're level. And this is 30. So we have 3 strings of pixels that are representing the 3 different smart receivers. So on this first one, I will go down here, and the smart remote is capital A and then B and C. So that means that this string will be assigned to port 1 on the A smart receiver. This one is assigned to port 1 but on the B receiver. And this one I'll assign to port 1 on the C receiver. So now if we go back to the setup tab and we choose upload the output definition to the Falcon, are you sure? Yes. And we get our Falcon output upload complete. So if we go over to the Falcon page and we do a refresh, we now see that XLights has programmed the Falcon for my 3 strings. So string 1 is 15 pixels, so it's 45 channels. String 2 starts at 46, 27 pixels, so it's 126. This one starts on 127, 30 channels, ends on 216. So that's how you would set up the smart receivers in XLights and then have XLights program your controller.
This is one of the new smart differential receivers. I've got power connected to it and I've got a string of pixels connected to it. But I have no data coming in or out. But one of the things, this little switch right here, it's a momentary switch. You push it once. These receivers have a test mode. So this is a color wash at 100%. You see the first little LED comes on. The second LED is an RGBW at 32%. The third mode is a white ramp at 40%. And the fourth mode is a red ramp at 40%. Now if you click it again, it goes back to the color wash. If you hold it for a second till all the lights come on, it will then turn it off. We got the F16V3. It's got these 3 output ports, so I'm going to use this one to feed the differential receivers. So these 2 are Ethernet jacks. This is connected to my home router, and I have power coming in. I have no pixels connected, and I'm going to start off with a standard Ethernet cable. I'm going to plug that in here. Make sure it clicks. It's in there good. Now we're going to move this out of the way because we really don't need to see much of that anymore. Here I have 2 differential receivers, just the power's connected up to them. So this one I am calling A. This is A. This is B. So forget about B for the moment. Okay, so this is A. This is, let's say you just have 1 receiver connected. So if you only have 1 in the line, we need to turn these terminator switches on. So now they're on, and I'm going to connect 15 pixels up to them. So I have a small string of 15, and it is going into port 1. All right, they went in there. And then now I will take the cable from the F16 and I will go into one of the ports. You can go into either one, it doesn't matter, just go into one. All right, let's power this up just for now. We got indicator lights, meaning indicator lights, all the fuses are good. We have a little power light here, and that is it. The F16 just finished initializing, and we get these 4 little data LEDs. So to check, make sure that these are working, I will hit the test button. We're going through a color wash. Go to the RGBW, a white ramp, a red ramp, and then hold. Lights are there, and it shuts off. So 15 pixels. This seems to be working. Let's run a sequence real quick. All right, output to lights. So we have a little pattern going. That is red. That is green. That is blue. And then we have a bar effect with all 4 colors. So it's just running through a little bar effect. All right, so that one works. Now let's daisy chain onto number 2. So I will pull power. Power is off. Now that I'm going to go from this one, this A, to this B, I need to take the terminator off of A. So turn the terminator off. Okay. We'll move this out of the way. Oh, but I do need to get another Ethernet cable. We will plug into the other connector on the receiver A, and we will go into receiver B. Okay. Now, because this is the last one in the chain, I need to turn the terminators on. Terminator. So all 4 terminators are on. Need to put some pixels in there. 27 pixels. Okay, good connection. We got good lights. Let me run through a test real quick. Okay. I'm not going to run through all 4 this time. Okay, so the lights are going on, and it looks like our bar pattern is working correctly. Okay, so now let's add one more. So I'll turn that off, and we're going into the second port. I need to turn the terminators off of 2 because I'm going to have a third one. Okay. And then we have our third receiver module, so it gets a cable. These terminators are on, and these 2 switches are up. So all the switches are up on this. So I have a string of 30 bullet pixels. This is on a different power supply, so it means you could run different voltages if you wanted, or if you just need more power, you can do that too. So we got this powered up. Let's do a test. All the pixels are lighting up.
That is a quick walkthrough on the new smart receivers from Falcon. I hope you found some of that information useful. As always, if you have any questions, leave them below. Other than that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.
Now, I shot an email.
I got 6 of these, and so I got 5 of these when I started relaxing a little bit, and then BAM!